Nthunthuko Shoba has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Tshegofatso Pule. Shoba was convicted of being the mastermind behind Pule's murder in 2020. Her body was found hanging from a tree in Roodepoort's Durban Deep. For more on this, I'm joined now by reporter Linda Mnisi, who was in court this morning. Linda, there was celebration in some parts of the courtroom. However, when you focused a little bit on the uncle who speaks for the family, he, of course, was hanging his head in between his hands. He says there's a sigh of relief, but also, I suppose, as a way of saying, I've been carrying this on my shoulders for a while. It's time now to heal.
Absolutely, Thabo. I mean, this marks the end of a 2-year journey for the Pule family. You'll remember they've gone from discovering Tshegofatso Pule's body from a tree, going to the arrest of Muzikaise Malepane, a plea deal being entered to, and ultimately the sentencing of Muzikaise Malepane, who was sentenced to 20 years. Thereafter, the arrest of Nthunthuko Shoba, the mastermind in the matter, who happened to be the father of this unborn child. So it's really been a tough 2 years for them, but they're quite glad that, justice finally was served. They say that they consider themselves amongst the lucky families who get to taste and see justice. But you'll remember that yesterday, Nthunthuko Shoba, the mastermind, was pleading for mercy from the court, asking the court to deviate from the prescribed minimum sentence of life because he was found guilty for the premeditated murder of Tshegofatso. But today, during sentence, the judge, having looked at the mitigating and aggravating factors, saying that, in fact, among some of the aggravating factors was the fact that Tshegofatso relied heavily on Nthunthuko Shoba, not only emotionally, but physically and financially as well, and it was that vulnerability that was exploited. Let's take a listen.
But it was also Miss Pule's dependence on Mr. Shoba for money, to buy baby clothes and to transport her to and from his home, that gave Mr. Shoba the opportunity to arrange her abduction and murder. That is probably the most aggravating feature of this case. That Miss Pule was pregnant when she was killed is also plainly very aggravating, as is the degree of planning and persistence that Mr. Shoba demonstrated in bringing about Miss Pule's death. He contracted another to carry out the killing. He made 2 attempts to do so, first by trying to arrange her abduction at the Ormond McDonald's outlet, and then by delivering Miss Pule into her killer's hands outside his home at the Westlake complex. It is clear from all of this that Mr. Shoba was the prime mover in bringing about Miss Pule's death.
So then, Linda, we also heard yesterday that Shoba was, of course, asking for a same sentence, a parity of sentence, so to speak, as that which has been handed to Malepane. But this, of course, as we know now, was not the case.
Absolutely. I mean, he went as far as saying that the fact that he does not show remorse or maintains his innocence, even after the conviction, does not necessarily aggravate the case. He said he was exercising his constitutional right to, of course, plead not guilty. And Judge Stuart Wilson saying that with that particular aspect, he cannot really punish him for, pleading not guilty. But of course, when you look at the facts and you weigh the circumstances between Muzikaise Malepane, who tendered a guilty plea, because in his guilty plea, it ultimately led to the arrest of Nthunthuko Shoba. And without it, the police wouldn't have reached Nthunthuko, and ultimately he would have continued with his life. So Judge Stuart Wilson then saying that, in both circumstances, he couldn't have given the same sentence because, of course, Muzikaise got a 20-year jail term because they looked at all of what he had to give to the state in order to get, of course, to the prime suspects. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I am also persuaded that Mr. Shoba's role as the prime mover in the planning and commissioning of the offence distinguishes his situation from that of Mr. Malapane. But for Mr. Shoba, Miss Pule would not have been killed. But if Mr. Malapane had not accepted the contract on Miss Pule's life, the facts of this case strongly suggest that Mr. Shoba would have carried on looking for a way to kill Miss Pule with or without Mr. Malapane's help.
Now, Linda, of course, Mr. Malapane has been of great assistance to this court to get us to this point. However, I get a sense that the family would still like to hear from Shoba exactly what happened for them to read absolute closure. And in that statement, the uncle saying, we still don't really know his thinking and what was going on here.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a family that still wants to know exactly where Tshegofatso was killed. We know from, of course, Nthunthuko Shoba, or in fact, Muzreise Malapane, that he took her to, Noordgesig, where he shot and killed her, but not necessarily the exact spot. So those are some of the things that the family is battling with. You would have heard during that media briefing earlier. I asked him about Nthunthuko Shoba's family, seeing that he's going to prison for life, right? Are there chances of his family ever reaching out to the Pule family? Will they accept them? And, you know, at this point, the family, it seems, is not open to that particular idea because it seems right at the beginning, the family had not made, you know, any attempts to reach to the Pule family. So, you know, at this point, they're also looking at possibilities of him even appealing this sentence, but they're quite certain that even with that, he will not succeed.
All right, Linda Mnisi, thank you tonight. I appreciate you coming in.